I can't unmute. So, did you turn? You can.
Yeah, I disconnected.
Yeah.
Do you want to log in again?
No, that's good. Okay, okay. All right, we're good.
Hare Krishna.
You can hear me and see me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya. Can we start, or you want to say something?
Welcome you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Let us start.
Is all the noise coming from the kitchen?
I'll go and tell them to not make sound.
Tell them their conversations are being broadcast on Zoom. Do you hear the background noise, the kitchen?
Something.
Yeah. You know what my godbrother says? He says, like, in India during the days, just, 50, 80 years ago, mostly farmers. So to communicate, you had to talk very loudly, right? Because you're talking at a distance. So they're communicating from downstairs, upstairs. Hare Krishna. It's nice to see all of you again. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Ti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nirvisesa Sanivadi Paschadistani. In 52 minutes, I have to give a lecture downstairs. So, last time I think the questions went for an hour, didn't they? I think we went over time, or 40 minutes. Vijaya.
You are not audible. You're not audible. There's some network issues with that.
You can't hear me?
We can hear. There was some. Okay. Now it's okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Hopefully the internet's okay. Okay. So I thought we could review last week. If any of you remember what we discussed last week before we continue. So if you would like to share either in the chat, or you can raise your hand and mention something you remember, or specifically something that you found helpful. Okay, Kirti wants to say something. Do we have to unmute her?
Usually they respond in the chat box because in the audience somehow. If you want, we can do that also.
Yeah, let them speak. It's more real. Actually, let's start with Rachaita, because the way you're all lined up on my computer is left to right. It's easier for me. So Rachaita.
Try to unmute yourself. Someone. Rachaita, can you try to unmute yourself?
I think you have everyone on mute. I can ask to unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Okay.
as is the last session you had taught us on how to concentrate on the holy name and not distract our minds with other thoughts, because Krishna feels bad.
Because why?
Because see, the holy name is meant to call Krishna and to have a conversation with Krishna, to pray to Krishna most importantly. So that is why we should chant the holy name with love and devotion.
Yeah. So we're talking to Krishna, and while we're talking to him, we're thinking of something else. Quite strange, isn't it? And the thing is, if we talk about a normal relationship, this is obvious. If we're doing it, it's obvious. Somehow when we're chanting Japa, we think this is so different, and it doesn't become as obvious. It's because we think, I'm just ignoring a sound, that's all. It's not like ignoring my wife or something. That's actually worse than ignoring your wife. Ignoring your wife is pretty bad, but this is worse. So, because we think it's just a sound, so we don't think it's a great crime to not be attentive. It's after all, it's just a sound. No, it's inattentive to Krishna. So japa is a conversation, and we're ignoring the person we're talking to. That's amazing. I don't know how we do it. Special Shakti of the conditioned souls. Okay, thank you for that. So, Kirti, you'd like to share?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, you said that prasadam will taste better. Prasadam is tastier, then we can eat more. If it is bad, then
Yeah.
we don't deny to eat. So
Yes.
that was very helpful, and I applied. And also we have to block the external word. It is like our time with Krishna. We have
Yes.
to chant. It is my time with Krishna, nothing else. And also switch off the phone completely until you finish your rounds. So you said all these things, and I applied it, and I found drastic changes also.
Yeah, and if you're really blissful when you finish your rounds, you can keep your phone switched off the whole day. It might be the best day you've had in years. So, yes. What was the first point you made? I forgot. The very first point?
The prasadam is tastier,
Yes,
we will
yes.
eat more.
Yeah. So this is it's an answer to the question how to chant more rounds. Because one way to chant more rounds is just put it on your to-do list, 16 rounds or whatever it is you're going to chant, and put it on at 6 o'clock I chant till 8 o'clock, 16 rounds. That's one way to do it. But if you're going to do that your whole life, it usually doesn't work. It's just like if I ask you, Kirti, there's a food that's really good for you and you don't like it. And I say, you have to eat this food your whole life. And you're like, you won't be able to do it. At a certain point, you won't be able to do it. So many devotees are unable to maintain steadiness in their japa. And so my answer is always, when someone says, how do you increase your rounds? I'd say, well, how do you increase your eating? You know these brahmacharis, they weigh like 40 pounds, and then they get married and they weigh like 300 pounds. So like their wife, I go, well, your wife must be a good cook. And he's like, yeah, she's really good. So he's eating a lot now because his wife's a good cook. So if I'm skinny and I need to eat more, send me a good cook. I'll eat more. But if it's a bad cook, I will hardly eat. So how do you increase your rounds? By avoiding offenses, by opening your heart to the holy name and praying to Krishna. It becomes a very sweet experience. Like you were saying, it's a communication. And that sweetness, you don't want to stop. One of our godbrothers, he said, I can't chant 16 rounds. So everybody was concerned, He was a leader. He's a leading devotee. I can't chant 16 rounds. He was joking with him. They said, what do you mean you can't chant 16 rounds? He said, I can only chant 32. It's impossible for me to stop at 16. When I was young, there was a commercial for a cracker or some kind of chip or cracker or cookie. And the commercial said, I bet you can't eat one. And what they meant is, you could eat one, but you can't eat one because you'll always eat another one because they're so good. So I bet you can't eat one. Only one. So if you get a taste for chanting, then I can say, I bet you can't even chant 16. You'll have to chant more. Now, what was the other point you made? I forgot.
Like switching off all the distractions and even phone and going only my time with Krishna.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've heard this before. Many devotees talk about inattention. And one of the aspects Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes inattention as distraction. And Specifically, he means we're distracted materially towards our material desires. But we can broaden this idea, just being generally distracted. And one of the easiest things to do to improve japa is to learn how to be able to make japa. That's all you do when you chant. You're not doing anything. And I don't mean externally doing it, I mean internally. So I've been with a devotee for the last 3 days, staying at his home. He's a surgeon. So I said to him, it seems that if you're doing surgery, you have to be focused, because if you're not, you can make a mistake, and that mistake could be life-threatening, or it could damage a person for life. He said, yeah, complete focus. So when he does that surgery, it doesn't matter what's going on in his life. His daughter may have just failed her final exams. His wife may have just sprained her ankle. It doesn't matter what's going on. He has to, at some point, he has to stop and get ready for that operation, right? No matter what's going on. And he said, yes, that's exactly how it is. That's exactly what we need to do with japa. When you're entering, let's make up a phrase now. You're entering the altar of the holy name. Because any of you who are doing deity worship, who've gone on the altar, when you enter the altar, you shift into, this is Krishna's room, this is Krishna. Right? As soon as you walk on the altar, there's a shift when you walk through the door from the puja room to the altar. There's a shift. I'm now with Krishna. So what about entering the altar of the holy name? Do you make a shift when you do that? Do you know that I think one of the biggest problems in bad japa is not making a shift before we begin. We just begin chanting. There's no shift. You imagine the surgeon, his wife just sprained his ankle, his daughter just failed her finals. He's completely disturbed, and he just walks in to do the operation. It's not going to work, right? Or you're a performer and that happens, and you go on stage totally disturbed. You can't perform. You're a professor. You go and teach a class. That just happened. You're totally disturbed. In life, we know how to focus. You have to be in a proper mood to execute a specific activity. So let's just kind of remember this statement. When I pick up my beads, I'm going onto the altar of the holy name to chant my rounds. Now, what do you do on that altar of the holy name? Do you check your phone? I don't think so. Do you call your girlfriend? I don't think so. Do you go eat a rasgulla? I don't think so. Now, technically, you could do those things. And there's no offense, there's 10 offenses. It doesn't say checking your phone while chanting. I have 11 offenses. The 11th offense is to check your phone while you're chanting. I've rewritten it for, because that comes from the Padma Purana before there were phones. But it comes under the caption of distraction. So there was a lecture in which Prabhupada said, when you chant the holy name, it's like the curtains opening on the altar. He said, that's how you should take it. You should bow down to the holy name, bow down on the altar of the holy name. And there are temples in India, you know what their deities are? You know what's on their altar? The Maha Mantra, that's their deity. That's what's on the altar. So now, if you're chanting the holy name, isn't that a deity? It is. It's Krishna in the form of sound. It's a deity in the form of sound. So why do we treat that deity in a different way than we treat the deity in the temple? That's a good question. Who wants to tell me the answer? Why do we treat those deities differently?
because our material senses are limited, we can't see the physical form in the form of wood or marble or metal. Even though we know that holy name is in the form of the sun, we can't physically see from the
Yes,
eyes.
exactly.
That's why we treat it differently.
So we are relying on what Prabhupada said is not a good sense, the eye. He said the ear is much better than the eye. So now we've read, how many times have you read that Krishna is his name? 500? 1,000? Brajasundar probably read it 10,000 times because he reads more. So he's heard 10,000 times, right? But how will you realize that? You will only realize it when you treat the holy name that way. And if we don't treat it that way, if we're looking at our phone while we're chanting, we're definitely not treating it as, we're not on the altar of the holy name. We're not treating it as Krishna. So then we don't realize it's Krishna. And then we say things like, chanting is difficult, my mind wanders, I don't like to chant, I'm bored, etc. Okay, let's rephrase that statement. I'm bored sitting with Krishna. I'm distracted sitting with Krishna. No, you would never say that, would you? That doesn't make sense. So really what we're saying is I'm bored sitting with my mind. Because my mind's not that exciting, actually. Have you noticed? Your mind's not so exciting. So I'm bored sitting with my mind. Because I'm not realizing that I'm sitting with Krishna. So I have found if you can go on the altar of the holy name and be with the holy name as if you were with the deity, then it becomes extremely easy to chant. And everybody listen, because this is really important. Have you ever chanted and tried for 2 hours to control your mind? And by the end of your japa, you had to go to sleep for like 5 hours just to recuperate? That's hard work, trying to control your mind, isn't it? It's like, this is mental. My mind's wandering, bring it back. Prabhu, did you think of Krishna while you were chanting japa? No, I was just thinking about controlling my mind. I didn't think of Krishna at all. That happens. It sounds funny. It's sad. Sadly, it happens. When you prepare yourself to chant japa, that you're going on the altar of the holy name, you don't have to fight your mind. And the reason you don't have to fight your mind is because your mind is not going anywhere. Because you are now with Krishna. You are not in your life anymore. When we are in our life, when we're chanting, that's when we have this problem controlling the mind. So then all the energy, which is supposed to go into praying to Krishna, honoring him, crying, goes into trying to control the mind, which is dragging us away from Krishna, because we're not on the altar, we're outside the altar. When you're outside the altar, your mind goes everywhere, doesn't it? When you walk on the altar, it calms down. Does that make sense? I have personal experience of this, and devotees I've taught this to also have this experience. So much energy goes unnecessarily into controlling the mind. The mind that we've allowed to be uncontrolled. Does this make any sense? It's like, on one side of the street is the liquor store, and the other side of the street is the program for alcoholics. It's like, it doesn't make sense, right? So one side, our mind is unbridled. We have not entered the altar of the holy name. We're still in our life. We're still thinking like we normally do. And the other side, we're trying to control the mind. That doesn't make sense. Just go on the altar. You don't have to control your mind. It'll automatically take you out of your life. So we were talking about this yesterday. We did a Japa retreat yesterday. We were talking about this paradox. Nama Rupa Guna Lila. So when you say Nam, Krishna, Krishna and Krishna's form and his qualities and his leelas are all packed in one, just like your name indicates your form, your qualities, and your leelas. If I say Kirti, there's a form there, right? There's qualities and there's activities. Kirti does this for a job, for occupation. Kirti's this tall, she weighs this much. She's very humble, is very sweet. You have qualities, pastimes, and form, and she has a name. Okay, so have you ever chanted Japa and the only Leela you thought about was your own Leela? Has that ever happened to you? Have you been chanting Japa and meditating on your to-do list Leela? Yeah, you don't have to say yes, because I already know. I only ask questions for which the answer is yes, in case you haven't noticed. You may not do it now, but certainly you've done it before, and you may be doing it now. So, don't you find that funny? That we're chanting Krishna, which includes his guna, his lila, and his rupa, and we're meditating on our guna, rupa, and lila. Isn't that weird? After class, you can go in front of the mirror and say, boy, am I weird. I didn't know how weird I was until I heard this class. Now I realize how weird I am. It's weird, isn't it? That's like one of the greatest paradoxes, I think, in Krishna consciousness is to meditate on our lila when we're chanting the holy name. Why are we meditating on our lila? Because before we begin chanting, we didn't go on the altar of the holy name. We just picked up our beads and started chanting. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Yes or yes? Have you been there? Been there, done that? Yeah. Okay. Minakshi, what else did we learn last week?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, that was perhaps. So one of the important things that we learn is what you just paraphrased it. We must meditate on Sri Krishna and his life. We should not meditate on our life, which we have been, at least I have been doing. I don't know about others.
Yeah.
And I tried a couple of things what you have told, Prabhuji. And my husband told me, my Prabhuji told me that when I was chanting this week, you could hear properly Krishna.
Oh, nice.
Rama. And he told me, though the pace, the speed has remained the same, but the quality and the sound effect somehow has become much better.
Very good.
I think it's the name of Krishna, and I really found it very impactful.
Yeah, Krishna.
The idea is, you said that Srila Prabhupada to ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada and ISKCON are elderly people. They have passed on this fortune of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahamantra to us.
Yes.
And we have to use it well.
Yes.
And another thing is that we should not think that chanting is ritual.
Yes.
Every time we take up the beat, every time it's a new moment with Krishna, every time we are restarting the relationship with Krishna, and therefore every time it has to be at a similar or better level. It cannot be a ritual. The moment I think it's a ritual, my quality doesn't come up. And another thing is, you had said, if we try to think of the quality and improve the quality, the quantity will come on its own.
Yes.
And I really found this happening.
Very good.
And the SML devotees making association also helped.
Fantastic. You remembered a lot. Thank you. This is really, I believe we were also talking about how that if we're focused on ritual, which is like focused on number, or too much focused on externals, then we kind of depersonalize the process as just a mechanical process, like meditating on a candle or chant or doing pranayama. It's kind of mechanical. And when we depersonalize the name becomes a sound, and it's no longer a person. And because it's no longer a person, then we're not conscious that chanting is a relationship. Right? You're there, the holy name is there. That's a relationship, right? And so chanting is one devotee said, people think that when they're chanting, they're not doing anything. So, but actually you're doing the most important thing. You're working on your relationship with Krishna. So don't ever think, oh, this is a waste of time. I could be doing something more productive. This is the most productive thing you can do because you're working on your relationship with Krishna. That's the most important thing you can do. Correct? Isn't it? Like, I'm chanting every day, so many hours, so many rounds. I have nothing to show for it. No, it's your relationship that you have with Krishna. But if we depersonalize the holy name, then we're not, I don't want to say we're not chanting. I'll just say we're not chanting properly, in proper consciousness. Thank you, Meenakshi. That's very important. And Vijay has something for us.
Hare Krishna, so the last class you addressed. So we have to realize how Harinam is very related to our devotional service. Without realization, how Harinam is very essential for our life, our chanting will not be so serious. You gave a very nice example. For example, the doctor says that don't eat this, it is not good for your health. It is a general statement. But if the doctor says, if you eat this, you will get heart attack, then we won't eat.
Mm-hmm.
So that is very practical example you gave. So in this way, I started studying some of the Bhagavatam and Namamrita verses. So it is very much, we can relate that slokas in our day-to-day life. Like Srila Prabhupada 6.3.31, it says, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can uproot even the reactions of that greatest sins. That I am personally realizing in my life. So before joining ISKCON, how my life was. After chanting and the association of devotees, my life is greatly changed. I am seeing many devotees in this case. So the relation, we have to realize how Harinam is related to our life. This was very wonderful point we gave.
A big problem is we forget the importance. Because anything which is a priority in your life is a priority because you understand the importance. And oftentimes we disconnect, and then the holy name no longer becomes a priority, it becomes secondary. We try to fit in our chanting here and there. That's a huge problem. And if you have that problem, it's very important you reflect on why the Maha Mantra is important in your life. Because if you forget why it's important, then you will tend to minimize the quality of your chanting and even the quantity of your chanting. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said that we should always be reflecting on why am I chanting? What does the holy name mean? We should be conscious when we're chanting. Why am I doing this? What's the point? What's the purpose? What does it mean? Have you ever chanted your rounds and kind of been absent-minded and really disconnected from the meaning and the purpose? That we definitely don't want to be in that state because the quality will then reduce. So that's why it's important to study. You study about the holy name, you understand why it's important. You understand its position in bhakti, that all the 9 processes are contained within chanting, that everything becomes perfect and pure with the holy name. Prabhupada said, chanting is the essence of our philosophy. He said it's our connection to Krishna. He said it's the highest service. Like sometimes devotees would say, you know, I have to chant my rounds. And the way they would say that would be, the connotation would be, this is not devotional, like I have devotional service and I have to chant my rounds. Like chanting is not service. It's like, what is it? Prabhupada said it's the highest service. So this is very important. Can somebody tell me why is chanting important for them? Give me a reason. You can put it in the chat. Give me a reason. You can all give a reason. Why is chanting important? One reason. Why is chanting important for you?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I'm not that good at texting.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's important for me because I want a loving relationship with Krishna.
Okay.
But, you know, I can't have a loving relationship with Krishna or anybody if I don't at least pay attention.
Okay. I'm going to write that in for you.
Okay. So, you know, love starts with attention. You know?
Yeah.
And the more I absorb myself in Krishna, you know, the more inclined he will be to reveal himself. This is another thing I need more to love him. He has to reveal himself to me, or be inspired to do so.
Yeah.
In order for me to have love with him.
Yeah. You know, as you're talking, a lot of devotees are saying the same thing. Develop love.
Oh.
Develop relationship. Dormant love. Want to ignite my love for Krishna. Remind me of my relationship. Everybody's saying the same thing. That's interesting. Fix our broken relationship. That's Satyanandan Swami. Doing all the 9 processes. Purify ourselves. Okay, thank you all for sharing that. I'm going to tell you something that I think, that I feel when I chant. When I'm chanting, I feel like if I'm chanting properly, I feel like the relationship is tangible. Like I can connect with Krishna very deeply. And if I'm not chanting properly, I feel like basically no connection. More connected with my body and mind. Like, have you ever chanted your rounds and felt completely connected with your body, especially like you're in pain? Or you're hungry, or you have a headache or something, this is all you're thinking about. If you chant properly with the desires that you're all talking about, it's important because I can connect with Krishna. You will feel very strongly that if I continue chanting this way, my relationship with Krishna every day is going to become stronger and stronger. And if you're not feeling that, it means you're not chanting properly, because if you chant properly, you will definitely feel this. It'll be felt very strongly. The holy name is so powerful that it's connecting me with Krishna. You'll feel that. And since all of you said chanting is important because it awakens love, I can connect with Krishna. You really need to bring that into your japa, because if your relationship with Krishna is important, then it's going to be important for you to chant in a way that the relationship is becoming stronger. Correct? Because why would you waste your time chanting in a way where the relationship is not improving if that's what you want? Does that make sense? Like let's say I want to be healthy. And so I think, well, one of the things I'll do is exercise. but I'm not exercising properly. Like, well, that doesn't make sense. You want to be healthy and you don't exercise properly. Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. So you remind yourself, no, I want to be healthy. I have to do these exercises properly. That's a motivation, right? Dwapayana, you want to share something? Dwapayana.
Hare Krishna. Last time you mentioned this, there's the depersonalized
Yes,
Krishna,
yes.
as a most important part of the chanting and maybe of our existence or life. And I tried this week to practice it. And interestingly, what I experienced that something like when I want to cut the butter, but with a knife, but the butter was frozen still, so the knife just slipped down from the and okay, Krishna is here, Krishna is a person, I'm a person, relationship, but it was just more like a theory, not.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Can I tell you a story?
please.
This will help you a lot. I don't know if I told this story. Did I tell the story last time about the installation of Lord Jagannath in San Francisco? Does anyone remember? No, I guess not. Okay, so, no? Yes? No, okay, no, okay. So, San Francisco was the third temple I lived in. And I moved into San Francisco temple after I'd been a devotee 8 months. So that was my third temple in 8 months. Just circumstantially, I was asked to go to these different places. Anyway, many of you know the story that Lord Jagannath came as little deities from an import store, and then Prabhupada asked to carve a bigger one. And so it was about 2.5 feet, as I remember. And so they carved these deities, and then Prabhupada instructed the devotees how to worship them. So I think it was 1960, must have been around 1967. Prabhupada was in San Francisco in 1967 in April. I was there a week before he came, and then I left. And I didn't find out till I read Lilamrita that I missed him by a week. Anyway, so you have here a temple with all young Americans who've never seen a deity, heard a deity, what to speak of worshiped a deity, what to speak of seeing a deity like Lord Jagannath. You know, Lord Jagannath, even, I guess even for Indians, Lord Jagannath is interesting, right? Not your normal deity, right? So Prabhupada said, this is Krishna, this is his sister and his brother, and this is, you need to wake them up and feed them and bathe them and dress them, and, which for us is pretty far out, just coming off the street, right? We had so much faith in Prabhupada. If Prabhupada said, jump off the Empire State Building and you will float down and not get hurt, we would do it. We just believed everything he said. So Prabhupada said, this is Krishna. It's like, okay. You know, this was Haight-Ashbury. We've seen stranger things than this. You know, on LSD, we saw many strange things. So devotees had so much faith, they said, okay, and so you need to wake him up. Oh, is this piece of wood we wake up? Yeah, you wake him up. It's not a piece of wood, it's Krishna. Like, okay. No realization, zero realization. And 100% faith in Prabhupada's words. So that's what we did. We worshipped him as Krishna. We didn't see him, we couldn't see him as Krishna. We had no idea. We saw him as a piece of wood. But Prabhupada said, don't see him as wood, see him as Krishna, and worship him that way. Treat him that way. So that's what we did. And as you know, by doing that, gradually, we start to realize that he's there. There's reciprocation. There are dreams. There's many devotees had dreams about their deities, talking to them, close the window, I'm cold, you know, I don't like your cooking, like things like that. So it all started with faith in believing something that logically made no sense, and something that we weren't seeing. We weren't seeing Krishna, we were seeing a statue. So in the same way, we learn from Shastra, we learn from the Acharyas that Krishna is present in the name that's chanted without offense. Do I realize that? Prabhupada said, yes. The stage of bhava is when you realize it. Your contamination is so, you're pretty much almost completely pure, so now you can realize Krishna in his name. And there's ecstasy. Obviously, you're seeing Krishna in his name. Before that, we have faith that that's Krishna. So that faith, then we go back to the idea of the altar of the holy name. So now this deity of the holy name is on the altar of my heart, and I'm going to worship it as a deity. It's my deity, my Krishna. You know that Maha Mantra you make, the sound you make with your mouth? That's your Krishna, that's your deity. Tapayana, that's your deity. Hare Krishna. I have a different deity. They look the same, but mine sounds different than yours, right? We're from different countries, different accents, heart's in a different place, moods are different. So our Krishnas are a little different. Our Radhas are a little different. But we each have a Radha and Krishna. Like, do I realize that? So many times when I'm chanting, I'm thinking Krishna is present. I think of the story of Dhruva Maharaj. You remember the story, Dhruva Maharaj, when he was meditating? He had gone into samadhi, or close to it, and Krishna was within him, and the whole universe is within Krishna, and therefore he was weighing down the whole universe. He had the power of Krishna within him. Sometimes when I'm chanting, I'm thinking, this is really interesting. Krishna's right here with me. So theoretically, I have the power of the universe right now with me. What's my realization of that? I can say it's greater when I think that way than when I don't. When I accept, Prabhupada said this is Krishna. If I'm chanting, trying to avoid offenses, Krishna is here. And I'm like, okay, he's here. Then Prabhupada said, and this is really interesting, Prabhupada said you can feel Krishna's presence. Oftentimes, I ask devotees, what do you feel when you chant? Sometimes they say, sometimes I don't feel anything. To which I say, no, but Krishna's present. Allow yourself to feel his presence. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You must feel something. Allow yourself to feel it. Some devotees say they can feel Krishna vibrating in their body because they're chanting Hare Krishna, and he's vibrating. The sound, like in kirtan, you feel it. You feel Mahaprabhu, isn't it? Ecstatic kirtan, it's like Mahaprabhu is there. Do you see him? No. You can feel it. Can't you? So why can't we feel Krishna's presence? He's there. Dupayana, how is it that we could be purified by a sound unless that sound is Krishna? Because Krishna is purifying. He's light, and we're in darkness. So I allow myself to go there. Prabhupada said it. I have experience. I'm being purified. I can feel it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I can feel something. So I allow myself to open up to the experience that Krishna is there. In some way, I try to access it. It can be a little intellectual sometimes. It can be just allowing myself to feel. I know Krishna's here. Let me feel. What sometimes I don't feel, I neglect to feel. Let me feel it. And then you get some realization that you just spent 2 hours with Krishna. That's amazing, right? Every day, 2 hours with Krishna. That's a lot more amazing experience than thinking I spent 2 hours with nothing, just a mantra that's putting me to sleep. Like, it's much different, right? If that's Krishna, it's hard for the mantra to put you to sleep. If it's not Krishna, it's easy for the mantra to put you to sleep. Right? Isn't it? So that's what I meant. If we're treating the mantra impersonally, it's stemming from this challenge that we have not yet realized Krishna in sound. And the only way to get around the challenge is to accept it in theory as we accept that Krishna is in the deity. Even if I don't see it. I see the deity, I'm not fainting like Mahaprabhu. Right? Mahaprabhu saw Jagannath. What did he see? He saw Shyam Sundar. That's what he saw. That's why he fainted. He didn't see a wooden statue. He saw Shyam Sundar. When Mahaprabhu was asked, what is the holy name? He said, I don't know. All I know is the holy name is Shyam Sundar. That's what he's seeing in the holy name. That's what he's seeing in the deity. right? But then he's seeing the mountains in Puri and he's seeing Govardhan. It's not even Govardhan and he's seeing Govardhan. Because that's where his heart is. That's where his mind is. So the impersonalization, depersonalization of the holy name comes from the fact that we're not on the stage of bhava, so we're not having deep realization that it's Krishna. But it can come through faith. My guru has said this is Krishna. Let me meditate on that. Let me allow myself to experience Krishna's presence as best I can. Let me just meditate on the fact that he's here when I say Krishna. Let me absorb that. Let me put my faith there. And let me treat the holy name as a person. And every time my attention goes away, I've treated him as a sound, not a person. I've treated him as a process, not a person. Every time I lose that connection with my heart, where I'm praying, where I'm crying, Krishna, please let me serve you. Let me stop thinking about serving myself. Let me realize I'm a servant, not an enjoyer and controller. Every time I'm praying that way, my connection with this person becomes very strong. When I'm not praying that way, I'm dealing with a process, impersonal. Processes are not persons. It's interesting, isn't it? A process is not a person, and a person is not a process. You might use a process to connect with a person, but when we lose connection with the name, then it just becomes a process, not even connected to a person, because we're not meditating on Krishna. You know, sometimes I ask devotees, they always get the answer wrong, so I won't ask you to give me the answer. I say, what's the best thing about the holy name? Well, I'll give you a hint. I was just in Vrindavan in March and April. And so when I was there, I was chanting, I was very much in the Radha Bhav mood, because Radharani is so beautiful and it's her place. And I bought a chadar, it said Sri Radha. And I have a disciple named Sri Radha also, because practically 50% of my female disciples have the name of Radharani. So I'm there, like, Hare Radharani, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm asking everybody, what's the best thing about the holy name? And they're saying, well, it purifies you and it's easy and any fallen person could chant it. And I go, that's all good. I say, the best thing of the holy name is Radharani's there. Radharani's in the name. So now isn't that sad if we're chanting the holy name and we just like totally miss Radharani? Think, no, it's just the sound. Radharani's not there, I'm thinking about my to-do list and whatever, I'm just bored, just trying to get my rounds done. Isn't that sad? Wouldn't it be sad to go on the altar and dress Radharani and think, that's just a statue. It's really nothing, I'm just doing it because the temple gives me prasadam if I dress the deities, but it's just a statue. How unfortunate would we be to think that way? Correct? So if we can just be open to the fact that they're there, even though I may not realize it fully, and allow myself to think, oh, I'm praying to Radha. Radha is here in the holy name. She's mercy personified. I can get mercy by chanting. And just enter that. Then you'll have these kinds of experiences where you'll start to realize Krishna's there. And you'll finish your rounds and you'll think, that was amazing. I just spent 2 hours with Radha and Krishna. And who am I? I'm just a simple whatever. American boy, European boy, like did every sinful activity you could think of. And Mahaprabhu has allowed me to associate with Radha and Krishna. Like, what could be better than that? And what can be worse than committing offenses and not having that experience? I was in a class in Los Angeles. I had the fortune of living in Los Angeles in 1972. Srila Prabhupada stayed in Los Angeles for 9 months in 1972. Can you believe that? He stayed 7 months straight. He went away for a few weeks and came back for 2 months. 9 months, and I was there. Maybe the whole time I was there. got to listen to class every day. Srila Prabhupada said that some devotees had just left the movement, so they had told Prabhupada, and so Prabhupada sometimes would talk in these Bhagavatam classes about things that were happening in the temple. Often, when he would be reported there was some situation or problem, he would talk about it in the class. So Prabhupada said, he said, "You are the lowest." I forget exact words, Prabhupada used to say rascal. So I think he said something like, "You're like the lowest of the low, rascal," like that. And you've been lifted to the highest of the high. And if you give up Krishna consciousness, again you'll go down to be the lowest of the low. And he said, therefore, if you become Krishna conscious, you're the most fortunate. But if you leave Krishna consciousness, you become the most unfortunate. In other words, more unfortunate in a sense than people who never came, because you had your $1 billion and you lost it. Whereas the guy in the street never had it. So you're more unfortunate. You were on the threshold of deathlessness. You were on the threshold of prema and you lost it. So I think it's really powerful for us to think Krishna's here and I'm not conscious of it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not experiencing it. What could be worse than that? Because if I become conscious, then I can connect deeply. Yes. So, I would love to stay with you for another hour, but I can't. Because I might get fired from my day job of giving the Sunday Feast lecture. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to end. Take everything I said as like little seeds that you can plant in your heart and they can grow. And these, and again, I want to emphasize that this, my realization of 20 years of trying to improve my japa, well, we could say 50 years of trying to improve, but 20 years of really trying to improve it so I could teach it. My realization is the depersonalization of the holy name is the cause of all offenses and all our problems in japa. That it's the cause and it's the manifestation also of the problem. It works both ways. So if we can, I'll tell you one last story because it's a beautiful story. I was in Mauritius and we installed Radha and Krishna deities in 83, 82. No, it's been 83, and I was the president there. And so what happened was we were going to buy the house, the temple we were renting, we were going to buy it. And so the owner knew we wanted to buy it, so he jacked the price up 10 times. So it's like, well, why will we buy the house for 10 times the price? So then the devotees thought, well, why don't we just buy some land? We'll get the government to rezone it, and for the price we pay for the temple, we can buy this land, and then we can build a temple, right? So that was what they did. But the problem was they had to move out of that other house because he wanted to sell it. And they couldn't find a place suitable for the deities. So we have a farm. So we asked the farm, can you take care of the deities while we build the temple? And we thought we would build the temple in a couple of years. Ended up taking 6 years. So they had the deities for 6 years. So after 6 years, we built the temple. We said, we're ready to take the deities back. What do you think they said? Said, we're not giving you the deities back. I mean, what do you mean? There are deities. Well, we've been taking care of them. We're attached, but they're ours. They're part of the farm. And it was going back and forth. It was the height of my emotional experience in ISKCON. And this was in like I said, no, this happened in 1992, that they finally came back, 1992. So it might have been more than 6 years. In 1992, they came back. That was the most intense emotional experience I've ever had in my life, of trying to get Krishna back. And then when he came back, it was like Krishna coming back to Vrindavan. It was like everybody was crying. The devotees at the farm were going crazy in separation. The devotees in the temple where he's coming were crying in happiness. Is that just a block of marble? No. But
It was Rath Yatra.
yeah, like Rath Yatra. Well, it was more like, yeah, it was like Krishna left Vrindavan, yeah, like Rath Yatra, and Krishna came back. And so that experience always comes up when I talk about the holy name. I said that was that marble statue, only marble. But because we worshipped it with love, it revealed itself. So if you worship the holy name as Krishna with love and devotion, you become attached to it. You start to realize, this is Krishna that I'm with. And just as we became attached to those deities, you become attached to the holy name. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for coming. My honor to be with you.
Thank you very much, Mahatma, for your association and speaking about the glories of the Holy Name. Look forward for more courses from you at Bhagavad Mahavidyalaya. It will be a great honor to serve you and serve all the Vaishnavas by bringing both of you together on our platform. So
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you for doing this service. Hare Krishna.